Welcome back. Right, our monster summary and review of this book is already out. It was a real chunker, so today I'm going to quickly take you through the most burning questions you might actually have about this character and the story. The Soulcage, why Teldrassil? What was Sylvanas setting us all free from? And then a few questions that cropped up in the novel's wake. Did Sylvanas regret invading Gilneas? Really, did Lava EEL VORE convince Sylvanas to throw it in with the jailer? All those things. We're going to parse the novel, and we're going to bring you the answers to the questions you've been asking. Now, if you're here just for the lore that really should have been in the video game anyway, then great. But if you're also interested in an incredible audio experience that is in fact narrated by Patty Matheson, Sylvanas herself, then I highly recommend hitting up our link with today's sponsor, audibletrial.com/Bellular. If you follow that, you will get the excellent audiobook for free forever with the credit that comes with the trial. I love audiobooks, especially for fiction. Audible is very much their home, and that's very, very much the case with Warcraft, where loads of the Warcraft library is there on Audible. For this book, Patty does a brilliant job with the actual speaking, with the voice work, and I think it is, the best way to experience the character of Sylvanas, quite simply. Triply so, with her in-game telling being, confusing. So, head up audibletrial.com/Bellular for that, and with that said, let's jump in. Was the ex-crackpot creative director of World of Warcraft, Alex Afrasiabi, correct that Sylvanas did do Wrathgate? Nah, he's wrong. So, did Sylvanas order Wrathgate? The official answer now is no, but she wasn't blameless. When the Forsaken came together, Putris presented Sylvanas with a plan to kill the living and the dead. He promised that this new blight would even be strong enough to kill Arthas. And so Sylvanas gave him free rein to develop the damn thing. Any means justified the end. It was all down to killing Arthas. And if you left it there, then yeah, it kind of is Sylvanas' fault. But not really. Putris and Varimathras also used it as an opportunity to take Sylvanas out. Now that this coup happened was actually great for her. It gave her a real easy scapegoat to kind of clean house, to play dumb, to get away scot-free with the plague and all of that. Because, without that, well, Sylvanas very much could have been put on trial or killed by Varian in the Undercity. So that's the word on that. Next, the deal. Time for the big one. What exactly was Sylvanas' deal with the jailer? Well, essentially, for every injustice that Sylvanas had faced in her life, she always had her family as a refuge, right? We really see that in the book. No matter what she did, they would eventually forgive her. Then half of them died. When Arthas turned her into a banshee, she was initially rejected by the Kaldorei. She overheard Halduron saying the nightmare that haunts him from Silvermoon is Sylvanas' face. That hurts her. A sister rejects her. Another sister is missing. She always had the belief, though, that one day they'd all be together in the afterlife. The time really would wash away all wounds. The Arbiter, of course, completely prevents this. And that is the core fact that Zovaal uses against Sylvanas. Now, he ends up prophesizing 5 events, and as Sylvanas sees them come true through the Legion expansion, she becomes all the more convinced that yes, he is in fact right. But what about that convincing? Was it really VORE? You've seen the EEL VORE jokes perhaps in the internet where she sees one lava eel eat another one and it's very unjust. So did an eel eating another eel really convince Sylvanas to join the jailer? No, that's just the meme going around the internet. But it is a part of the journey she has taken on through the afterlife. She sees other things like Zul'jin in Revendreth, and she's disgusted that Zul'jin gets redemption in Revendreth while she gets doomed to the maw. Feels pretty shitty. Then we get the lava eel scene that people clown on. Basically, it's all a trap. The Valkyr showed her a curated version of the afterlife's most unfair situations, with the goal of ensuring that she knew families would not be reunited. That's the cosmic injustice that flips her to the jailer's side. She thinks Zovaal is right, and to be honest, he is right. The Shadowlands are pretty damn horrible. Not as horrible as his curated selection, but still grim in a way that Sylvanas absolutely was particularly sensitive to. Love then. Were Nathanos and Sylvanas in love? Well, it was clear enough already, but we didn't really get to see much of it between them, and in this book it's unequivocal. Basically, they've been in love from almost the day they met. and they end up spending a lot of time together as a duo of rangers. You know, ranging and such. But then later, when Sylvanas is freed from Arthas, she finds the rambling zombie of Nathanos at the Maris stead, and she basically pulls a, remember who you are, remember me. And it actually works. And there you go, she gets Nathanos back. This relationship is probably the most successful part of this book, actually. And that did surprise me, because I found Nathanos kind of annoying in-game, but he really works here. During the Siege of Orgrimmar then, Nathanos basically asks her to run away with him. You know, screw the jailer, screw the lot of it, let's just run away. And it's not as cheesy as you think. It works quite well. Ultimately, they both know it's kind of impossible, so it's just a sad situation. Nathanos basically knows about the jailer and all that, but he doesn't care. He's just there for Sylvanas. What about the Forsaken then? Does this book tell us more of their founding? Well, yep, and it's some of the best world building that's in the book. Sylvanas knows that to kill Arthas, she's going to need a weapon, and as we know, she calls out to the Banshees, and she eventually claims the capital from Varamathras, forcing him into servitude. Now, the book then covers the rest of the Forsaken, things like stable hands, training giant bats, and of course Putris founding the Royal Apothecary Society. Now, this is all vengeance for Sylvanas, and the book makes it very clear that at this stage in time, you know, she's freshly soul-sundered, and she's sort of herself again, no longer controlled, and she sees everything as just arrows in her quiver against Arthas. Killing Arthas is the only thing that matters, and that is how she sees everything at this stage in time. She realizes she needs a bigger weapon, though. She needs a military alliance. Diplomats are sent to the alliance, but they never return. And she later realizes this is probably just Onyxia's doing. Of course, Onyxia's there in guise, but she still holds a bit of a grudge. With the Horde then, she's quite smart. She reaches out to Karn Bloodhoof and the Tauren, believing them to be the most grounded race in the Horde. Karen eventually got them in. That is actually what the Forsaken at the Pools of Vision are about. And when she asks Lorthamar to join the Horde, the book again makes it seem like they're another arrow against Arthas with little to do with her heritage. Which does feel a little bit grim, but if you think about, say, Lament of the Highborn, there's totally that situation where there's still times that a bit of nostalgia and memories for the past, they can still kind of pierce all of these layers of vengeance she's got around her. But primarily, it's vengeance that guides every decision she makes. Fast forward to after Arthas has been defeated in her first encounter with Sovel, and we find out that Sylvanas did not regret Gilneas and killing Liam Greymane. But there's more to that. So basically, Garrosh thought he could just throw the Forsaken into a war that would destroy them. He doesn't care about the Forsaken, and he's pretty suspicious of them given Wrathgate. So that's what the Gilneas invasion is really all about. Get rid of the Forsaken, destroy Gilneas, happy, happy. Sylvanas sees then that with Arthas dead, she's still in a situation where she's not free. She has a boss. She doesn't like this. Now, as for Liam, she does not regret killing him. Instead, she's frustrated the arrow didn't hit again. Now, there's a flash, though, of remorse, because there's a little bit where she realizes that this is just another unjust act in a broken universe, that, you know, this sucks for the people involved. But she immediately rationalizes everything, telling herself, it's okay. Gen is actually lucky that I'm doing all of this, because if all goes well, he'll be with Liam for eternity. Happy days. Basically, I'd say here, if you're struggling to make that make sense, think about how unhinged the Dark Army are in the TV show Mr. Robot, and what Right Rose and her partner are kind of end up, you know, being like. She's a little bit unhinged like that. Another burning question. Was Arthas truly under the jailer's thumb? Well, we don't know how truthful Zoval is being, but he does tell Sylvanas that Arthas was supposed to be a tool to remake reality, but that he had too much free will, he had too much ambition for power. Now, all of his appearances in this book are before he became the Lich King, so it's at a point in time where, you know, Ner'zhul didn't really mind control him. Ner'zhul was just a strong enough influence, but through that, Arthas' own personal will did kind of, you know, push through. What about Ner'zhul then? Maybe you're wondering about him. Well, his Lich King is more under the jailer's control, but he was kind of a bit useless, as this line puts it. His mind was as broken as the world he destroyed. Yeah. Now, Kel'Thuzad tells Arthas that the Dreadlords were the Lich King's jailer. And that might be confusing if Kel'Thuzad is on Team Jailer, Team Zovaal. But of course, we now know via an interview that at this time Kel'Thuzad did not know about the jailer. He was sort of working for Ner'zhul, and he did indeed think that the Dreadlords were serving the Burning Legion. So there's the word on that. What about the deal with Helya and the Soulcage? That's another one we've wondered about. Well, we thought it was to, force Aegir to, make more Forsaken, get control of the Valkyr and stuff so the Forsaken could be a strong, vibrant people and, reproduce, kinda, because they can't do that normally. But it turns out, nope, this was just another one of Sylvanas' missions. It was actually her first mission from the Jailer. The problem here the Jailer had was that the Halls of Valor were where some of the most anima-rich souls went to. So with the Soulcage, those souls could instead be sent to Helya. And of course then they'd be bent to the Jailer's purpose. Sylvanas got souls for the Jailer, Helya got an army, happy days. Now this does go against the story they were clearly trying to set up in Legion, but, well, I mean, come on, we pretty much knew that anyway, didn't we? Why Teldrassil then? Why did that whole meltdown happen? Well, by this point, we know that Sylvanas is wholly on Team Zovaal, with some crazy utopian vision, right, where she totally thinks that the ends justify the means. Now, with what she had, Teldrassil was the quickest option. Stormwind would take too much time, and as this campaign against Teldrassil goes, she ends up, of course, finding herself with Dalaran, and that's when her self-justifications just go into complete overdrive mode. Burning is fine, because that flash of hatred would be nothing compared to an eternity of bliss if Zovaal remakes reality in a nice, just way, where everyone gets to spend time with their family in death. When she tells Dalaran that, don't worry, you'll see your loved ones soon, it comes off as a threat, but Sylvanas genuinely means, it'll be fine, you'll be with your loved ones, I'm going to fix this. That's how twisted her brain is. Basically, hope is just something that holds people to the first one's unjust design, so she's got to kill hope too. By this point, Sylvanas' mind truly is twisted into a pretzel. When she says she'll set us free in the cinematic, this is truly what she means by that. Oddities then. Did patch 8.3 only take a few hours? Yeah, the Siege of Orgrimmar ends, the second Siege of Orgrimmar that is, 8.2.5, that ends, and then the book reads, a few hours later, and then Sylvanas is in Icecrown. So did patch 8.3 and Shadows Rising take place in a few hours? Nah, it's literally just not possible for Shadows Rising and 8.3 to have only taken that amount of time. I mean, Shaw goes on a whole adventure to Zandalar. There's other issues too in the book. I mean, apparently Silvermoon was always red and gold. Even when we've been shown that in the High Elf days, before Arthas, it was blue and cyan, including an official art. Another is Nathanos knowing about the Night Elves before the Second War in one of his very early meetings with Sylvanas. Now, people knew of Kalimdor, but when the humans of Lordaeron turn up in the Third War, they're really surprised to find the Night Elves, so that's weird. Like, Jaina had never heard of them. Another weird thing is Archimonde being called the greatest of the Dreadlords. No, he's an Aratar. It doesn't work like that. Well, it actually turns out, we learned this via an interview, that Christy Golden was writing this, of course, for an outside publisher via a more standard book publishing deal, but she was doing that while she was already working at Blizzard. She ended up getting creative direction for this book from the lore team over her lunch breaks. So the heart that she put into this book is absolutely there, but I do feel that perhaps more time should have been taken from Blizzard's end. Maybe Blizzard should have caught these things. Perhaps these things just weren't caught before print, but that feels weird because I imagine maybe those printed copies sat around for months and months and months because the book release was continually delayed with patch 9.2. Funny enough, Blizzard are hiring an associate historian right now, so perhaps that between this and the issues with exploring Azeroth Kalimdor, they're actually aware they've got problems. Another thing then, did Sylvanas see her brother Lyrath in Anduin? The answer to that is yes, and I wish we knew more of this during Shadowlands anyway. Did Anduin follow Sylvanas into the Maw at the end of the book? The answer to that is probably. And basically, this connection to Lerath is something that evolves through the book. She calls Anduin Little Lion when her brother's nickname was Little Sun. But that's just the thin end of the wedge here. By the end of the book, Sylvanas and Anduin have actually got a connection that sort of transcends the Lerath thing, because Anduin sees Sylvanas in her totality, Banshee, Queen, and all. In the epilogue, Sylvanas is in the Maw, beginning her judgment. A judgment that from her perspective could end up lasting for hundreds or thousands of years. She hears the clank of metal plates behind her, and then she is surprised. We don't know who it is, but it's probably Anduin. He's now also a little bit broken, like Arthas and Sylvanas. He's had a lot of trauma, damage to his soul. He tells us this at the end of 9.1, a little message we find. If he is there, I think it's not just for Sylvanas. I think it's also to find his own way to redemption, and she's struggling with different but similar-ish issues to him. Basically, what we learn, even through the in-game stuff in 9.2, is that Anduin blames himself for what happened, that he should have been stronger. And he tells Gen that he can't go back, not yet. So that's what the fate of those two characters is for the short term. Okay, I'm going to draw it all into just a quick TLDR of Sylvanas' motivation so that, I don't know, you have a handy place where you can find that. It's simple. After Warcraft 3, and before the end of Wrath of the Lich King, that's a time period where Sylvanas is wholly driven by vengeance, and she basically cares about nothing else. After that then, she succumbs to despair at the unfairness of death and what her fate would be, and she slowly becomes, to put it rather simply, an indoctrinated cult member, or at least that pattern of thinking, who thinks that the ends justify the means. And that's what her mental state is like when she's on Team Jailer. That is the motivation for everything she does, especially after the end of the Legion expansion, which is when she realized that Zoval's prophecies were actually beginning to come true for her. All of BFA is just her lying to everybody about her goals, bar the very end where she's a bit more truthful to the loyalist player. Ultimately, this story is fine. It actually feels quite good for the character of Sylvanas within this book. But we never understood what drove her actions when she was taking them in-game from our character's experience. And that is why Sylvanas' motivations seemed so bizarre to many at various points in the last 2 or 3 years. And looking at the Sylvanas book, it is a clear attempt to weave an internal narrative for her through all the twists and the turns that players struggled with, so that at least she makes sense from her own point of view. This book fixes Sylvanas, and it's a really good read. It doesn't fix the time that we spent not knowing and not fully understanding. And that is the situation with Warcraft Sylvanas, and now you know all the key takeaways from the book. So, if you would like to actually dive in to the book and really see the texture of all of this, and I think importantly, how Sylvanas' voice actor actually act these lines. That's the great thing. Patty actually puts a lot of work into this book, and just when you hear the title character actually saying her lines, there's just that little layer of acting that really helps you understand and feel where the character is. So if you want to experience that and do so for free with a free trial to today's sponsor, Audible, then you can go to audibletrial.com/Bellular, follow that through, sign up, and with your free trial, you'll get a credit. You can use that on Warcraft Sylvanas, and when you do that, it will be on your Audible account forever, even if you were to cancel the subscription. So, a big thank you to Audible for supporting our channel with these Warcraft books. I hope you found today's video to be interesting, or at the very least useful, and I will indeed see you next time.